This episode of the Leap Forward podcast is brought to you by Bridge LT, leaders in conversational learning and innovation. Through AI role plays, technical simulators, and comprehensive training programs, Bridge LT is revolutionizing the future of corporate and enterprise education.
In this episode of Leap Forward, we are joined by Kerry, founder of Akino and a seasoned expert in business transformation with over 2 decades of experience. Kerry shares her insights on leveraging systems to enhance customer experience, the critical role of empowered and knowledgeable teams, and the importance of seamless omni-channel strategies. With a track record of driving organizational change and innovation, Kerry offers valuable perspectives on empowering people for long-term success. Don't miss this engaging conversation with a true pioneer of change and innovation.
So welcome to this edition of the Leap Forward podcast. I am delighted to be joined today by Kerry, Kerry from Akino. Kerry, do you want to sort of briefly introduce yourself and perhaps give us a little bit of a career journey to date?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. And it's great to be on as a guest. So thank you, Justin. So yes, I founded Akino Limited about 9 years ago, coming up for 10 years ago now. And my mission really was to explode into the world of business transformation. Now, at the time, I was working almost exclusively in the automotive industry. And almost a decade on, I'm still really excited and passionate about working in that world. I've also managed to take the business outside of the automotive world as well. So what we do from a business transformation perspective across industries is everything from strategy and discovery, so coming up with those ideas for innovation and transformation. And then we're very much about rolling our sleeves up and delivering whatever that transformation is. So that can be people, process, systems, or better still, a combination of all of the above. And for us, the golden thread through everything we do is people. So that's about taking people along the change journey. It's about creating engaged and energized stakeholders. And of course, doing everything that we need to do in order to keep the C-suite aligned and informed and updated about the project and the outcomes. So that's what Akino is all about. And my history, actually, my career started in banking quite some time ago. I won't tell you how many. We don't want to do the sums. So started in banking. I then went from banking into public sector, actually, both in terms from a supplier's perspective. So supplying I worked for an organization that supplied the databases into social services. I then founded my own business actually with a business partner, and we created some business intelligence solutions. And then that has basically evolved and transformed into Akino being born, as I say, a decade ago. So I've got a great range of experience across multiple industries, which is then great, gives me great lenses to bring to new worlds.
And you yourself and the businesses you founded and run have transformed, so you're practicing what you preach.
Absolutely. And I think in this world we do, right? We have to innovate, we have to transform, we have to evolve. And yeah, it's so important. So I really do. Yes, I practice what I preach, that's for sure.
It's really interesting that you've sort of put people kind of at the center of that journey as well. And we're definitely going to kind of sort of unpack that a little bit. But before we do that, what I'd love you to do, wearing primarily, I suppose, your automotive hat, but feel free to kind of put on a couple of others. Plot me kind of a sense of kind of where we are kind of in automotive, because you hear different sort of messages kind of, you know, from the market, in the market, about kind of where automotive is. You know, there's very much kind of a sense of there being huge challenges, but also I think there's enormous opportunities. I'd just love to kind of get your perspective on kind of context setting, and then perhaps what we can start to do is work out kind of, as you say, how are we going to realize those opportunities and overcome those challenges through what you do in terms of transformation.
Absolutely, yes. So I think the automotive industry is a really exciting time. And what I should probably disclose up front is that I am a car fan. So when I entered the automotive industry about 10 years, I'll just give you a quick insight into my decision-making process. I was working heavily in public sector at this time, and an organization approached me. They'd heard about my work in public sector around, as you say, this innovation, transformation, business intelligence, and all these other things. And they said they had a new client had come on board, a new industry, but they really wanted some fresh pair of eyes into that world. So I asked what industry and what company. They said automotive, Volkswagen Group. And before the sentence was finished, I said, yes, please. I knew nothing really about the project. It was a 3-month gig, if you like, in terms of 3 months to enter this world that I was passionate about. And as I say, almost a decade later, I still do work with Volkswagen Group now, a decade later. So I am a car fan. Now, what I bring to my work in the industry as a car fan is I put myself in the consumer's shoes. So over the years, and I think about I passed my driving test 3 months after my 17th birthday. I did turn 17, 10 lessons, test passed. And since then, I love everything about driving cars, being around cars, kind of the sound of engines, the smell of engines, and all these other things. But the one part I've always found really troublesome over the years is buying cars or servicing cars. That moment that we all, as car owners, that we all have when the light comes on your dash and your heart sinks, or you hear a funny noise and your heart sinks. So I really put myself passionately into those shoes. Now, the reason I give all that context is because where we are in the industry right now is we've got this exciting time in one respect where we've got beautiful, brilliant products. Now, I talk about the smell of engines, but that doesn't mean I'm adverse to EVs. I love everything about every kind of car. So we've got the electric vehicle revolution, let's say, that's coming. We've got government guidance. We've got government pressure, some might say, in order to move to the industry. As we know, the OEMs and the dealerships have certainly got the pressure in order to be selling more EVs because of the ZEV mandate. We've got the 2030 being pushed out to 2035 and all of these challenges that are going on. But really, I think the biggest change for me has been, and not meaning to say the C word and the COVID word, but of course, what COVID did for us all is accelerated the consumer's expectations in terms of what we want to be able to do. Now, that's not just about, I'm not going to leap down into the rabbit hole of online buying and kind of online purchasing. I'm still really passionate about the dealership, and I do lots of work in the dealership world as well. So about the dealership experience. But the reason why COVID has accelerated our expectations, because as customers, we're all aware of our time now and how time is so precious. So that one of the reasons I always found it tough buying a car is because I didn't really enjoy that 2 hours that I had to spend in a dealership and that merry dance that you often go on in a dealership where the sales exec has to go into that secret back office in order to have the secret conversation with their manager to see what the secret deal is of the day. We just want transparency. So we want more transparency. We haven't got much time. So perhaps we want to do more of our journey offline. So all of these things combined, regardless of whether we want to be buying EV or not, is from my side, it's a word that's been bandied around for a few years, but I think it's becoming increasingly more important. And that's the omni-channel journey, and a true omni-channel journey that allows me as a customer, someone who's passionate about cars, that I'll do all my research on a Friday evening on my iPad, sat on the sofa with Coronation Street on the TV, don't judge, in order to be able to do all of my research then. And then the car is important to me. So I do want to go into the dealership at the weekend and I want to do the test drive. But then perhaps what I want is it from an omni-channel journey. So I don't want that pressure and the time it takes in the dealership, but necessarily in order to do the deal in that moment. So I think from both an OEM and a dealership perspective is that if as a combined effort, we're able to really take forward that omni-channel journey, that overcomes lots of and again maximizes lots of the experiential expectations that people have from the industry perspective. And then if you layer in the EV on top of that, which is a completely different purchase for people, even people like me who is really passionate about cars, it's a whole new world. So then we need to layer in some better education and some important educational steps and an understanding actually that the customer may have to go on a slightly different journey when it comes to EV purchasing. So with all of these things combined, I think there's a real opportunity, both at OEM side and at dealer side, in order to stand out and make a real difference now. So I think if a brand can be a brand who is able to understand the customer experience that customers are wanting to achieve and deliver it and understand the extra questions that customers may have around EVs and achieve the answers to those questions, then I think there's a real opportunity here in order to take it forward. And actually, I think the extra opportunity that EV brings, again, talking kind of with my car enthusiast cap on, is that there's some amazing products coming out from new brands, not just the Chinese incomers, but other brands that perhaps the badge or brand loyalty, or dare I even say some of the badge snobbery that some users may have, I think then goes, or certainly reduces. And that's certainly been my experience of talking to other brands and other dealer groups, is that they're taking on some of these new brands, especially in the EV space, and they are getting customers through the door who, these conquest customers who have been loyal to a branding before, or a group of brands before, and now they see this whole new world that's there really with EV sales. So I think this next, if I had my crystal ball, I think this next decade is going to be a really exciting one, both from an OEM and a dealer perspective, and from the customer perspective. Again, not downplaying the challenges that are there. I think the ZEV mandate brings an awful lot of challenges. The EV infrastructure, and again, we all know the ongoing challenges. I've recently been to an EV summit that talked about those challenges really clearly. So we have to be fully aware of all of those, and we still have to find solutions to those challenges. But if we do, I think we've got a great decade ahead of us.
Really fascinating. And I've just been sort of capturing a few sort of little nuggets that you've mentioned there that I'm going to come back with in a moment. I think you said at the beginning, and I love the whole Omni concept, I think it's brilliant. Let's take that all the way through to servicing. Give me your perspective on that.
Servicing, one of my most favorite topics, in terms of working with dealer groups and dealerships on improving that service experience, and OEMs as well. Actually, I've done many projects, even global projects, looking at the after sales experience for a global automotive brand. And so for me, the service, and I can talk about this very fresh, having just sort of taken one of my vehicles sort of through a service. Again, it's something which I don't feel is necessarily evolving quick enough. And there are some improvements. But the idea of me having to take my car to a dealership for 8 to 8:30 in the morning, even though it may not be taken into the workshop until the afternoon, is really quite archaic. And again, from someone like me, like many of us, I live a busy life. We all live a hectic life, and time is precious to me. So I think there's an opportunity there on the after sales that, again, anyone who's working smarter in order to provide a better customer experience. Now, I say better, it's not about a one size fits all. A word that I use a lot, both in sales and after sales, but especially after sales, is provide a relevant service. Understand your customer and listen to what it is your customer understands and needs. And so for me, for example, I'm really happy to pick up my laptop and go and work from a dealership for an afternoon or a morning. But what I want is some certainty that, as much as possible, you don't know, we all understand, you're not going to necessarily know what you're going to find. But if you're in for a routine service and you've got no knocks or clunks or bangs or warning lights or anything on the dash, and it's just, you're hoping it should just be a service, why can't I come and work for your dealership for the afternoon? And why can't you load your workshop in a way, manually or automated workshop loading, I don't care, so that I can bring my car in at lunchtime, sit for the afternoon, and then bring it back to me as well. So again, I think the dealerships, the dealer groups, the OEMs that are supporting their dealer network, those that are working on providing a smarter, more relevant service to their customers, I think are the ones that are really going to accelerate and take it forward. Or indeed, it could be let me do my keyless drop off. I don't want to talk to anyone. I'm not being rude, but I'm in a rush. Let me just do my keyless drop off. You take my car, work your magic, and do that. So again, the experience I had just recently was really positive. There was a dealer group. Actually, it's a dealer group that I'm working with at the moment, and they were able to take my car in. I did some work from their site again for over the lunchtime period. I came in, paid my bill, and left. And it was just, it sounds like it's not rocket science, but it's just, for me, beautifully relevant. I don't want a collection and drop off. I don't need a courtesy car. I'm quite happy. I don't want to take that car away from someone else. And it worked fine.
Really, again, brilliant. Love it, because you're giving real examples, and I'm thinking of my own as you're talking as well, like the kind of the calls kind of during a busy work day from a withheld number from the dealer saying something which is trivial and could have been just sent as an email and a text message, and they leave a voicemail. I have to then check my voicemail, and so on and so forth. And I think you've really encapsulated that kind of that customer experience, kind of opportunity, but also real world, the challenges that exist. With your non-automotive hat on, perhaps, um, where do you think, I mean, there are so many things that are going on in this sector which are pioneering, always has been, right? It's just innovation after innovation after innovation. So, in many ways, absolutely at the edge of where things are, and surely used as an example in other sectors, to say, how can we be as innovative as the automotive sector? But from a customer experience perspective, where do you think the automotive sector could learn from? Who's doing this really well?
Again, great question. So, if I may, before I answer the question explicitly, I just want to take us back to 2016, just briefly. Now, the reason I'm taking us back to 2016 is because I was asked to join a project at Volkswagen Group, actually, and this was with SEAT. So, SEAT had decided they wanted some new retail concepts, so a new retail experience for customers. And their idea was to put cars into shopping malls. So, not your single car in a pop up kind of box somewhere, an actual shop that people could go and buy an actual car and test drive it from the shopping mall on their own without a sales exec sat in the back, kind of chirping away at them through their ear. So this was a whole new experience. Now that's still, all these years later, it still stands out as one of my most favorite projects that I delivered, because it was so innovative and it provided an amazing customer experience because it was different. So one thing that we said from the beginning when we launched, again, I joined the project was in flight and I joined, and the mantra that the project had was, this isn't a dealership in a shopping center. So this isn't just about replicating the dealership experience. This is about something new. And the model was thinking about the classic Apple Store type experience. So it was about product experts. It wasn't about hard sales. It was about showcasing the amazing product. It was about allowing people to have the hands-on time with the product, go and take the car out for an hour. If you're local, take it home. How does it look on your driveway? And also from a team perspective, we had a really healthy blend of auto experience, but also non-auto experience. So the team that we intentionally built, we had an ex John Lewis sales consultant, John Lewis, who again, he was, of course, he was excellent from that customer service, absolutely brilliant. We had an ex London cabbie who was brilliant from a talking perspective because she could just talk for England, and she would just build those beautiful relationships with people. Again, we had an ex prison officer, and people, and again for her, communication skills were really important, kind of working the prison service. So we had this really great blend. And so then what we did is and it was we sort of built the blueprint, and then I then moved on to deliver the same store in Westfield. Now, for me, is again just an insight into my world and the projects that I do. So Westfield has gone live. It's a couple of years later. I'm well and truly finished on the project. The project is done, delivered, it's embedded. But I took my mum down to London for a bit of a touristy day, as you do in London. And I dragged her all the way to the Westfield shopping centre, stood her outside the Sayat store, and went, ta da, I did that. Because I was so proud. Now, the reason I was proud is because it gave that different customer experience. So if you want the classic dealership experience, and you don't mind the usual experience that, as I say, that you get in a dealership, then go to a dealership. But if you wanted something different, what SEAT did is they gave that option of something different, and it did a really great job from a brand awareness perspective. And again, from an idea of just providing a more relevant experience to those people there. So as I kind of leap back forward to where we are today, what I see now, I think the bit that automotive, I suppose the tough part of the automotive experience is it's tough to change, I think, is where we are. If we look at how you buy a car now and the experience that you get in many dealerships, it's probably the same if you could leap back 10 years, leap back 20 years, and maybe even leap back 30 years. I mean, even myself, as recent as 3 years ago, I was buying a new car. It was a premium brand, so I was expecting a really great experience. As a brand I hadn't had any experience of before in terms of purchasing. And as I walked in to buy my car with my money and my decision, it was my husband that got spoken to. And I was like, oh, come on, folks, please don't do this to me. And even when I did my little kind of spiel of when these, oh, so I did get asked, what do I do? And I explained that I'm in your world. And I explained a little bit about what it is that I do. The conversations were still going back to my husband, so much so he had to call out and say, look, this isn't my purchase. It's not my decision. You're going to have to talk to her. And I'm sat right next door to him. So I think what we need to do is I think we need to look at the industries like the service industry and the industries, again, people, I remember reading a book many years ago about the Disney experience and the amount of effort that goes into both front of house and back of house, as they call it, Disney experience. Um, Again, another book that I read, which was fascinating, was Fred Sirius. So the First Dates, Fred, if anyone's familiar with the television program First Dates. But again, he talks about the high end restaurants, and actually that the experience in a high end restaurant is far more than the food. It starts from the moment you phone to make your booking. It starts from the second you walk through the door. It starts from the lovely greeting that you get and how warm the greeting is. So actually, I think breaking down that customer experience, excuse me, through the whole journey, like we see in, and again, don't get me wrong, every industry can have examples that do it well and do it not. But I think we need to look at out of industry in order to get a healthy dose. Now, I'm not saying we have to change the barometer the other way, and I'm not saying that we need to, because it's not about bringing completely fresh blood into the industry. It's having a really healthy blend like we did in the SEAT stores, and actually doing lots more of listening and learning rather than just, I suppose, again, I suppose doing more of the same that we've always done. It's those classic words in business, isn't it? Kind of doing we've always done it that way. Some of the most dangerous words in business is that we've always done it that way. So I think there needs to be lots of listening and observing into other industries.
Love the hospitality analogy, and I can't believe that creating that kind of Avengers team for that project. What a great mix, and some great, like it's textbook, fantastic. When you're doing innovation and when you're doing transformation, one of the big challenges, I suppose, to your point about we've always done it this way and all the inertia you get from trying to do it differently, is the business case. Like how are we going to measure success? So, without betraying any confidences, of course, how do you like to set these projects up for success? What are the measures? What are the metrics that you use? Tell us more about that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, you said my magic words there, measures of success, because so many projects launch out of the blocks without an agreement of what the measures of success are. So that's absolutely one of the first things that we do. The next part, and I'm absolutely very, very well known for this in my world, is it needs to be about the robust approach to the project itself. So I am all for starting with a project plan. And again, I don't care what tool is used for this. It's more about the content that's important to me. So I flex based on a client's needs. But for me, it's about having the very robust project plan and approach so that actually we're able to fully track where we're heading to. As you say, fully track and document and track what our measures of success are, and are we achieving those? But then back to my introduction, a huge part for me is the people part. So that's about setting up before the project even starts. So it's about setting up what it is that we're doing, creating the vision. Why are we doing this? Start, of course, absolutely think about the measures of success, but just very importantly, why are we doing this? What's our aim? Who's going to be involved? How long is it going to take? Justin, if you're going to be involved, here's what I need from you, and here's why I need it from you. And here's going to be some expectations along the way as to, based on the project plan, roughly when I'm going to need it. Then it's the constant communication through that process as well. So actually, again, you're taking people along that journey. It's then, again, I talked about in my introduction about the robust reporting back to C-suite and managers and senior stakeholders. Because too many projects that I have seen, there's been a fear of wanting to report amber or red statuses. So often I will go into a project with senior stakeholders, and again, I'll set an expectation at the beginning that when I show my reports up on the screen, at some point you will very likely see some amber and red. I'm not afraid to report that we have an issue, because I may need your support on it. And what I'm not going to do, I often refer to a bit of a car analogy again, but too many project managers will do green, green, green car crash. So the project is green. Of course we're fine. It's still a green. There's no problem at all. Yes, of course we're green. Boom, it all goes wrong, and there's a car crash. So I think it's really important to be honest and transparent about where the project is, where it's going, and what's needed. And then a big part for me as well, again, a mistake that I see all too often in projects is that they're divergent towards go live. So whatever go live is, so go live could be the system being switched on, it could be the store opening in Westfield. And the diversion is we get to that point, we tick the go live box, done, the end. And it's not, because what we have to do, we have to do a process of embedding and ensuring that those new processes and the new systems being used, are people still comfortable? And I always then say that at that point, my measure of success isn't, yes, it's to achieve go live, tick in the box, that's a measure of success. But my personal measure of success is when I can see that the embedding is working, and I can then gently take my step back rather than the project go live, the end, project's finished. And in fact, just to share with you, I was relaying, I don't know, in a networking setup one time, and I was kind of relaying, as you know, answering that, so what do you do question. So I was talking about what it is that I do. And this person, he replayed back to me, he says, I think you're a bit like a landscape gardener. And I was like, right, you're going to have to expand on that one for me because I'm not seeing the link here. So what he basically said was, when it comes to innovation and transformation projects, think about it like a landscape gardener. And he said, I've moved into my house because I've just recently spent big money overhauling my garden. Kids have got an amazing play area. Me and the wife have got a fantastic decking and seating area, barbecue area. We've even got a hot tub down the back of the garden. It is amazing and it's beautiful. However, I know that if I don't get a regular gardener in, just for enough to keep it ticking over, then all of that investment's going to be wasted. So what you do, you're like the landscape gardener. You do all the effort and then the amazing work and innovation transformation. So the project work, you do all of that side of things. But I think what your customers need to do, they need to keep you on as a gardener. There's just enough just to tick everything along. And that's the embedding part then. So that's the embedding. It's but also the constant review in order to, as you said at the beginning, where else might we need to transform and innovate? Transformation doesn't and shouldn't really ever completely end. Yes, a project might close, but then it's the continual improvement off the back of it as well. So I thought it was an interesting analogy that he played back to me from the transformation world.
These are great nuggets. I love it. I've got you a really great picture now of you with your wellies on, and
With my wellies and my tools.
absolutely right. Love it. Absolutely brilliant. There's been a theme all the way through this, and I'll use the word again of people, and even the link there around embedding in terms of how do you then get through that sort of stage of process of embedding these new processes and systems and innovations and products and services into those teams, right? And as well as obviously the guiding them kind of on the way in. So that leads us all the way back, I suppose, to change and learning and skills and training. So give me your kind of perspective on the importance of that, and how you crack that when you're trying to drive change and innovation.
Of course, it is so important, and it's interesting actually. So many of my projects that I have been asked to join and deliver over the years, many of them have been systems-based projects. So there's Say at Store was a fantastic, experiential project, but there was still a system, behind in terms that people were using in order to self-serve in the stores as well. So for me, a really important part of it, when I go into a project, is about understanding the as is. So understanding the as is, both from a process perspective, systems perspective, but also skills and ability, but also what people have that natural ability to enjoy or not about their role as well. So a big part of when I start a project is to go and do some discovery. I'm working with a couple of new clients right now, actually, and I'm in discovery phase. So I'm interviewing and working with the people on a one-to-one basis to really understand what it is that they know, both from a project perspective, but also from a systems and process perspective. What we can then do is work out, when we're thinking about the to be and what this new world's going to look like, whether it's new system, whether it's new processes, whether there's going to be some new people coming in, or a combination of all of the above. We need to understand what that future state needs to look like from a people perspective. And the learning and the training and the skills around that is so important. And it's not just systems training. So in the store, for example, if I take us back to the Say at Store, there was an element of systems training that people needed in order to know how to use the system, so that when a customer bought the car, that everyone knew how to administer the system in order to make that purchase happen, in order to make that vehicle arrive from the factory at the shopping centre, a few months later for handover. So that's your systems training, and that was, tick and box. Everyone understood the need for that. But a big part of the training, again, the flag that I sort of flew on that project, with my colleagues, was the importance of process-based training as well, and process-based learning. So again, being clear on what the expectations are for the operations of the store. So, you know, again, even down to that moment when a customer walks in, how we're expecting you to greet. Now, it's not about providing a script per se. No, we don't want to create robots, but it's about being clear on expectations. So for me, it was about the communication, back to that communication of what the project is, what the aim is, why we're doing it. It is not a dealership in a shopping center. We had that, we said that a lot during the training as well. We have to remember this isn't, you're not there it's not about doing the hard sell to sell the car. But what do we mean by that? Well, let's explore it together. So we use lots of different training techniques in order to explore what we meant by not a dealership in a shopping center. Because it was only with clarity and only with certainty that, again, that lovely Barbara, her name was, the London cabbie, that was what was able to take Barbara and her natural communication skills, but adapt them to what it is that was expected and what was needed in the store. So, from my side, we had the systems training, we had the documented processes, so we knew exactly what the process was when it came to conducting a test drive, how what you do in order to conduct a test drive, but then also some of the experiential training as well and what the expectations are. Um, One of the best exercises that we did on the back of all of this, we did all of our training, all of our process reviews, the experiential role plays, and all this kind of stuff in a classroom type environment. And then just before we opened, we had the store all set up, the beautiful cars are in, ready to go. And we invited people down from the SEAT brand, from headquarters in Milton Keynes, and we gave them little cards with scenarios on. And we asked them to channel their best acting skills. And Justin, you are now a father of one, and you're expecting twins with your lovely wife. You now need a bigger car. There's your scenario. Walk into the store. And so then we did some semi real life role playing in order just to, again, embed all of that training and learning from a classroom based environment into the reality. And both sides, both the team and the SEAT, crew that came down from Milton Keynes, they both did a great job of staying in character, if you like, in order to really maximize that experience. So it meant that when shutters went up, a couple of days later, and shutters went up, and the first customer walked in, I felt where I was, when was sat across and just almost watching it happen from afar. And it's a bit like that proud mum moment. You just watch it all happen. And that, for me, if I could pay my mortgage with that feeling, I'd do all this for free.
I'm getting a sense of that as well. That's I would love to have been a fly on the wall of that retail experience. Wow, and what a great technique. And I think, sort of back to your Disney analogy, they cast members, right, as is what they call them. So can see that happening right now in front of my eyes from what you described there. You talked about sort of classroom. I just wondered, what are your views on the use of technology? We've come a long way, obviously, and as we've talked about already, this sort of acceleration of kind of change and behavior, both from a consumer and from a dealer and an OEM perspective. How can technology help us deliver that seamless omni-channel experience? How can technology make sure that, if you were to go and buy that car again, you'd have a very, very different sort of conversation with that salesperson in that dealership?
Yeah, absolutely. So technology is really important, and arguably it's at the heart of everything that we do. And again, it's because as consumers, we have such elevated expectations now. I've recently moved house, bought a new cooker. The moment I pressed confirm on that and I put my credit card details in, my next step is I hop straight back to my email, just to double check my receipt arrived. So that's the kind of expectations that we have as consumers. So what we need to do, we need to look at technology as a tool in order to leverage and help us to achieve all of those high expectations that customers have. But for me, technology is just one part of it. And as we're talking now, you can see over my shoulder, I've got some awards on my shelf behind me, and some of those awards are for digital transformation, so technology. And that's great. And we accepted them, of course, with gratitude and pride. And it was lovely to be, to be awarded these awards. But really, what I say that we're about from a Kino perspective is business transformation. And it's a nuance, it's one word, but it's an important one for me. And that's because I feel that technology and digital and systems can be at the heart of a transformation. But in order to make it really successful, both from the customer experience perspective, but also from the business perspective and commercial perspective, again, we all businesses have to make money, a bit like me and my feelings. I can't pay my mortgage with feelings, sadly. um, so for me, having that wrapper of the technology and the systems, but also the operational processes, the people, the relevant operational realities as a wrapper, if you like, around that technology, that's where the magic happens. And again, I bring this to life with a quick example. Is that a dealer group client called me and a colleague and one of my team, and we did a piece of work, and their question was, what systems do we need in order to make our business better? I paraphrase, but that was the crux of the question. So we went in with our kind of systems cap on, got to find the systems, which is the answer to all their problems. And we went in, fantastic business, but actually the systems were pretty good, and actually industry leading systems, but it was the way they were being used. It was the way they were being implemented. The training and the embedding hadn't been done ever so well. People were using it in different ways. There wasn't consistent processes across the sites. Some of the people had all the enthusiasm in the world, but perhaps didn't have the direction that they needed in order to be able to understand what was expected of them, and even down to how to use the system to its best. They'd learned from someone who they sat next door to when they landed in the team, and of course that person can only train what they know. So for me, I think systems can be a really big opener in order to improve customer experience, especially omni-channel. You can't achieve an omni-channel experience without a brilliant engine, a brilliant system to make it happen. But a brilliant system on its own won't work, in my opinion. What you need to have is that wrapper of really great processes, really great people around it. And from the people side of things, those people have to be empowered, they have to be energized. We want people to be advocates of everything that's happening. And again, we can do that through our change management techniques as well. But also from a learning perspective, they have to have all of the knowledge. So it's almost that theoretical knowledge, if you like, of how to use systems. But then again, as I talked about in the Say Out Stores example, it's the practicalities of how to use and embed that knowledge in real scenarios. So I suppose I would just probably describe the systems as the heart, but there's more to a body than heart. So we need to have all those other components as well in order to make it fully work.
I've put it better myself. Kerry, I've really enjoyed this conversation. I could have carried on talking to you for hours on end. What a wealth of insights. Thank you so much for sharing those with us today. It's been absolutely fantastic.
No, thank you for the opportunity. It's been great to talk to you.